Good people of Friendly Baptist Church. Here we are back for podcast number 2. This was a fantastic time together with John Michael and Aeron Wallace. And man, you're going to be blessed by it and have a great time listening to it. We're looking at James chapter 2 this week and had some great discussion. So we'll get right into it. And thanks for joining us. Started. Okay, fantastic. Hey, we're back for podcast number 2. And we've got John Michael here, and he's joining us again. And Aeron is with us. We're so excited. She's going to make this thing. It's going to be so good. Anyway, so really excited about being able to talk about James chapter 2 with you guys. So I got to read James chapter 2 a little bit, and I hope you guys did too. Aeron, let me ask you right out of the gate. We did this last time. In your D group, do you guys stick really tightly to the Hear Journal kind of format, or do you do something different?
I do, but
You're a rule follower.
Yes.
Okay, awesome.
I don't know if that's the teacher in me. Like when somebody says do it this way, I do it because I feel like there's a reason for it. So I don't know, just kind of leading our D group right now. I'm pushing for it of like why I like this method, because some people kind of like to do their own thing in my group, which is okay, but I feel like I just keep modeling this just because I don't know, the teacher in me says there's got to be a reason they say do it this way, and so I find it very helpful. So I do it.
Well, good. We like rule followers.
I
think John Michael and I are rule breakers.
Yeah, we're definitely different.
This. But I do a modified version of it myself. And so, I love it. And there is a reason for it. It helps us think.
Right.
It gives us a framework to be able to go through the text and find something in there. So I'm going to make John Michael do this first so that you aren't on the spot.
That's great.
All right. Share with us what you got, John Michael.
First of all, I just love the book of James. James is just been one of the most impactful books to me, just on my journey being kind of a newer believer, probably the newest in this room here. But so originally, I'd like to say the whole thing of sin of partiality really stuck with me, but it kind of got all put together on James 2:13. For judgment is without mercy to one who has shown no mercy. Mercy triumphs over judgment. And so I was trying to, like I said, how we're supposed to do this is to apply it to our life and how that works. So I just had a hard time until I went into Matthew 18:21-35. It goes back to, I have it. Sometimes I have to use other stories in the Bible to help me make sense of what I'm doing. But whenever the parable of the unforgiving servant, and I'm sure y'all are familiar with the story of the servant comes, the master abolishes his debt, gives it away, and then the first thing the servant does is go and tell the other guy who owes him money, give me my money back. And he said, man, I gave you merciful forgiveness at first because I thought you were a merciful man, but now you're not, and so you're not getting that from me anymore. And that's how that would really, when I read that, it really resonated with me of how am I not being that way in my life? How am I prejudging somebody before I even come in contact with them? Because my number one thing in life should be to share Jesus with everybody. Share Jesus continuously telling people about the greatness, because if it truly affects me the way it's supposed to, I want everybody to have it. And that me not telling somebody is me not being merciful to them, because I want their souls to be saved. And so in my life, I have fallen to that trap so many times of just like, no, they're fine. They would never, they're going to be argumentative with me, and not being the merciful. They just don't know, I should take every moment. If anything, they're just going to be, okay, it's fine. And I want Jesus to be merciful with me in everything. And so my response was, Lord, just help me be an abundance of mercy to everyone I meet in every situation. Show mercy at work, show mercy in how I act with my kid and everything in my family and how I lead them. So I know you'll show mercy onto me. So that's kind of my response. But like I said, I don't do it perfectly like I probably should, Aaron, and I apologize.
What?
But,
Stop.
but yeah.
No, I think it's good. Yeah. So I sometimes will forget that I too need mercy,
Mhm.
you know, and when I'm reminded of, you know, those moments in life where I'm really sensitive to my own brokenness, and then I go, oh crud, yeah, if I'm going to be given mercy, if I want to receive mercy, it just kind of shines a light on how much mercy I need to give to other people. And I don't know, sometimes I tend to be um you know hypercritical
Mhm.
about things because I see flaws
Mhm.
everywhere around me in my own life and everywhere around me because I like to fix stuff, you know, and that comes out in a very practical way to actually physically fix things. But then fixing situations and people and that kind of thing, um, I have to be reminded, first off, you don't fix anything. I don't fix
Mhm.
anything. And second, um, when I'm getting into that mode of I've got to fix everything, I've got to turn that off and say, Christ fixes it. You just show mercy and you follow his lead and do what you can. And I don't do that well, you know, all the time. And I fall into a trap myself, you know, and there's the trap for me
Mhm.
where, you know, I too have to be reminded to show that mercy. And without it, we're not going to move down the path very well.
Yeah.
It's just terrible.
But I think it's being sensitive for me. And I think I put it, when I was reading this, it really, me and my wife weren't in an argument, but it just, like a little thing that was said, just like when you go, you just kind of stick with it in your mind.
Mhm.
And there's two things that real world application for me, I really need to work on this is being sensitive to whenever mercy is needed. And like, I can get into the way that, you know, I grew up single father for a lot of my life is, and something's wrong, mess that up. It's all right, you know, and just walk off. And in my mind, it's as soon as it's all right, it's ended. But to my wife or whoever else I'm talking to, I didn't mean to mess that up. I feel really bad, you know, and not saying, hey, it's okay. I know you didn't mean to do that, you know, and being sensitive to whenever my wife or my kid needs that mercy. Because in my mind, it's not needed, but to that other person, to my spouse, it is. And also not thinking that like I suffer from the same thing as you is I'm the fixer. Like when I come home, well, if you would have done that way, if you would have, you know, if we would have cleaned this first or done this first, it would have made sense. But in all reality, I have to remind myself, I didn't do it.
Yeah.
You know, what's the point of why am I the savior to the situation? She's working really hard on this. I'm not her, you know, dictator.
Yeah.
You know, and I have to remind myself like I'm not the only person who knows the way.
Yeah.
And I have to really, it makes me sound like a horrible person, but it's the truth. I struggle with that. And so this really made me, and I haven't yet, and she'll know when she sees this, but this made me have to really, I'm going to apologize to her. Just kind of, you know, just be like, I know I can be this way sometimes. And she probably hasn't heard me say that enough.
Right.
And I need to do that.
Yeah. So, who's the hardest person for you to have mercy with?
See, it's funny you say that because when I underlined this verse, it wasn't like my here verse that I picked, but I underlined it and I felt like I was feeling a little conviction because I underlined it because I was like, oh, that just sounds good. You know, when something just sticks out, you're like, oh, that's a powerful verse. Like, for judgment is without mercy to one who has shown no mercy. And I'm like, I feel like I'm pretty quick to forgive. So like, you know, like even just as thinking about judging someone of them doing something to you and then having no mercy, you know, to forgive, it made me think about forgiveness. And I think that I'm pretty quick to forgive. But then I was like, okay, God, are you trying to like tell me something here? Because I'm quick to forgive 99% of the people in my life, but I feel like my spouse is the one that I don't show that much mercy to.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody else I can in the world, but my spouse is the one that I don't show mercy to. So like, it's funny you say that, because I'm just sitting here thinking, and I'm like, he keeps coming to my head of like, but I know everything about him. I know all of his flaws and everything else. And obviously he's the one that I feel like can hurt my feelings the most and do stuff. And I just hang on to things longer with him. And I'm like, well, do I want God to hang on to those things? Do I want him to like have no mercy with me, you know? And so that's something that came to my head this week when I read that, was like, I don't know why sometimes it's the people you love the absolute most on earth that we're the least Christian like too. You know?
That's
like,
powerful.
I don't know.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So what do you do? Okay. So now this is a straight up rubber meets the road kind of thing for the three of us, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what is the personal application at that point? What do we do differently?
You know, so Kaylin is not actually the one who, and Kaylin's my wife's name, but Kaylin's not the one I have the hardest person to have mercy with. It's my dad.
Yeah.
But because he was my superhero my whole life. So if I see him mess up, it's like, you know better than, you know, and it's a whole thing. But my wife always jokes like, you and your dad can build anything, but also scream at each other the whole time. And it's crazy, but we love each other. But for me, I learned this through Reengage, is just to remember, and Kellen literally makes fun of me because give grace. I just have to remember grace and mercy, and I just say it over and over and over again, grace and mercy. And the best way for me to remind myself that is I read. This is kind of not really a cool thing to say. I mean, I read John 3:16 and remind myself of the sacrifice and the grace that Jesus had for us. And I remind myself of that constantly, because then I can sit there and be like, Jesus has that ultimate grace for us.
Yeah.
So I have to, and it sounds like a cliche, right? But it's the truth. It's the reason there's a cliche, because it works for me.
Yeah. So I don't do this perfectly, but something that I try to model for my kids, for Gigi, and then for folks at the church too. When I catch myself in whatever it is, I want to stop in midstream. You know, if I'm being hard on Aeron and just grinding, and stop and say, that's not right. Right there in the flow of things. Just stop it. That's like midstream, hardcore, right? Just stop in midstream when you catch yourself and you come to your senses and say, that wasn't right at all. And I'm not treating you right. And I don't do that perfectly, but can you feel that moment?
Yeah. Oh, and I keep it in because my pride will not let me come out and say it though. I'll sit there in the vehicle and he's driving and I'm just like looking out the window. And I'm like, I'm not.
I hate that.
I know. And you just feel it in you. And for some reason, I just suppress it because I'm like, him first. Even if like maybe he did start it or whatever. Who knows? I've done it too. And I'm not showing that. And I just choose not to model it. I don't know. I do. I fail so many times.
And then it's like, okay, the Bible says something like, and it's like fire inside your coat and it burns you.
Yes.
And, I wish I could actually find that text, and it's probably a problem, or I'm just making it up out of the blue.
No.
But you know what I'm getting? Yeah, it's first opinions, but you get it.
Yeah, you do.
But when you stop and say that I'm totally out of bounds, that like pours water on it and it just dies immediately. Right.
You're right.
I know.
And then the car is a totally different place. Right.
Yes.
Or whatever. So I've done that a few times with my kids, and just full stop and go, yeah, that wasn't right. I'm sorry I yelled at you.
Wow.
And it's powerful.
That is. I mean, sorry.
No, good.
Like if my husband did that to me, I would be like, whoa, like how much that would model for me. So you saying that is like, I've honestly never thought it. I just wait till we're like not talking to each other, whatever. And then like, okay, we're sorry. But then you go right back to that instant again and it happens. But doing that, how powerful that would be. That's like, you're not just saying and praying, okay, God, I want to be better next time. But you're like following that, saying, I
Yes.
know I'm going to fail, but I'm going to stop and catch myself when the Holy Spirit, like I feel like it is in that moment, the Holy Spirit is telling me, you're wrong. You need to stop. Like, you need to say something, turn it around.
Yeah.
And I just suppress it.
Yeah. I'm getting preachery.
No, I was gonna, yeah.
This is important. If you do it 1 out of 10 times, it's powerful.
Yeah.
So
you're not going to be perfect. Just go for 1 out of 10. Go ahead.
Right.
Steve had told me when I was very first, like, coming to this church, he had told me that one day about a story about how he apologized to his son after he was getting on to him.
Yeah.
And I was just like, man, that's crazy. And it's kind of stuck with me. I was like, my dad would never have apologized to me,
Mm-hmm.
But here, a year and a half ago, we had my nephew living with us, and he's 12 years old. And I was just, man, I laid into him one day in a way that no person should have talked to somebody. And I just felt bad about it. I mean, I didn't call him horrible names. I just laid into him pretty good. The old dad with the finger, just, hey, you need to understand what you're doing. And I walked off, and I said something mean to Randy, and I said something mean to Killen. I was just mad. I walked outside, and what I did, and I was just thinking about what Steve said, and I felt so stupid. I was sitting on my porch, and I walked in, grabbed my Bible, and I said, hey, y'all, come here. And I sit down, and I said, y'all come in. And I read that Ephesians, fathers, don't bring your kids to anger.
Mm-hmm.
And I just said, hey, Dad messed up. I'm really sorry.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, I should never talk to you. I said, I'm not sorry for what you did. You were wrong, Corbin, but I love you, and I should never talk to you like that. And I said, Daddy's sorry for talking to you like that too. And I told my wife, I said, I'm sorry for not leading in a way I needed to.
Yeah.
And dude, you would have thought I would have turned the water. They're all crying, and I'm like, but ever since then, it's been different. And that was only like not too long ago. So, but you're right. And I'm happy I learned that, because I'm not saying my dad was a bad dad, but I remember for times I'm like, I know he was being too mean. And that kind of stuck with me, and I'll never forget that. But breaking those generational curses.
Yep.
And doing that. But
that's huge.
Sorry, I didn't mean to get on
that's great.
That's a great path. Now, Aaron's going to show us exactly how to actually.
Yeah, I know. I'm excited now.
So we're excited to hear your
Okay.
Right?
Okay. So I liked chapter 2, 14 verses through 17. I know I kind of went a long way there, but focus on the 17, of course, but I feel like I want to read all of it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What good is it, my brothers, if someone says he has faith but does not have works? Can that faith save him? If a brother or sister is poorly clothed and lacking in daily food, and one of you says to them, go in peace, be warmed and filled, without giving them the things needed for the body, what good is that? So also faith by itself, if it does not have works, is dead. Mm-hmm. And I guess, going into the explanation of this, like, I want to point out, like, knowing that, like, it's not works that save you. Like, I know I feel like a conglomerate of things, but making Jesus the Lord of your life, if you truly do that, I feel like the works are going to come. Mm-hmm. They're going to follow. So, like, explaining that, that's what I want to point out is, like, if it is true faith, it is true believing, and you're going to talk the talk, and it's true talk the talk, you're going to walk the walk. Like, mm-hmm. It's just going to follow. And then applying it, like, just to my life, I had to really think about this, because I feel like there's so many times that we say, we're praying for you, and then it's like, well, but then what are we actually doing? Mm-hmm. And I feel like sometimes prayer can be an easy way out of being passive to doing. Mm-hmm. Like a passive way of, like, excusing the actions, like, okay, God, I'm just going to keep praying about it. But then he was like, okay, so what are you doing? Like, what action are you taking? Mm-hmm. And so that was kind of like the application to me of, like, I was lately just like, I'm praying about, okay, God, show to me, like, I'm praying about something, but what is it that I can do to follow that? Like, okay, I say that I'm going to help my kids at school, and I pray for them, and I pray that they see Jesus, but am I actually showing them Jesus day in and day out, And I feel like as far as my response to that, that I just kind of, I felt convicted, like with my kids at school, because that definitely is a mission field for me. And I feel like God's placed me in that space.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, if I truly have faith in you and I truly believe in you, I'm going to do things in your name.
Yeah.
For your name's sake, you know, like it says in Psalm 23. And so I guess I just have to be strong on, like, you know, I love this. And I know it gets kind of controversial sometimes because people are like, oh, works is not what saves you. And like, I agree with that. But I do believe that if you are truly, you know, believing and having faith and making Jesus the Lord of your life, like, you're gonna live your life every day for him, you know, like you're going to want to do things to honor God and to spread his name everywhere. And so sometimes I just like, I catch myself like talking the talk and I'm not walking the walk, you know. And I feel like sometimes it's a daily thing of like, okay, Jesus, today please help me make you the Lord of my life. Like you're always the Lord of my life, but like, let me show that to people that you are the Lord of my life, you know, and that I'm doing things to, you know, further your kingdom and stuff. I don't know. So
love it.
Anyway.
So crazy question that always comes to my mind when we start doing this type of stuff. Think of you 2 years ago.
Okay.
Have you grown since then?
Right.
Do you see growth in your life?
I do. Do I feel like sometimes I regress though? Like, you know, like I feel like but like in the last 2 years, have I? Yeah, because I was kind of at a point where I feel like I had regressed 2 years ago, actually. It was like kind of at, I don't know, like I just know at certain stages in your life, you're like, oh, I'm good to go. Even though I was like in this mentality that you're not just always good to go. You're growing till the day you die, you know? So I think I feel, no, I am. I've grown in the last 2 years. I'm not going to fake it. I really, I do believe that. I feel, I was telling Bradley this the other day, like I feel convictions like just right now that I didn't feel 2 years ago, you know,
huge.
like of things that like, you're like, well, when I read the Bible before, I didn't really think that was wrong. Like I didn't see it. I like had blindfolds and now I read it and I'm like, ooh, I shouldn't be living that way. You know, that's not, you know, walking by faith and everything. So definitely, I think when your convictions change, you know, you're opening your eyes up. And,
well, it's a way that you know that your faith is actually living.
Right.
When you, and faith, the works that we're talking about here can be feeding the poor and taking care of the weak and the lowly and all the rest. But the way that you act, the way that you live day in and day out, if you can kind of look at today and look back a certain amount of time, whether it's a month or a year or 2 years or whatever, and you say, okay, I'm a different person. And for the better, because the Holy Spirit's been changing me. That tells you that your faith's alive and you're going to see the works of your life. So I think that's an important question. I ask myself all the time. Some of the changes that I see in my life, I don't like. Because sometimes, you know, when I was preaching some time ago, that I talked about the passion in my life. That passion turns to frustration. That frustration turns to anger. Well, it starts out a good thing and ends up a bad thing. And but the place that I'll never apologize is that passion in my heart and life is very different from the way it was even just a year and a half ago, 2 years ago. That passion has grown and grown and grown, and you got to learn how to actually aim it and control it. But so
it's good stuff.
I think it's great that you're looking at these things and saying, is my faith dead or alive?
Right.
You know?
Exactly. Like it's just like I heard somebody say if they stripped it all away, you know, obviously when you go through hard times, it gets stripped all the way to the core. And it's like, oh, do you actually have that? And I feel like lately I've been stripped to that. And so I'm like, I don't want to feel dead when it's all stripped away and it just be that. Like I want it to, you know, and I don't know, I want people to just, and it's not for my glory, for his glory, just be like, yes, like I know that she is a follower, a believer of Christ, like at work and the people I know, like work is a big thing for me. And I'm like, if I'm not doing those things and they can't see that or they question it, then I'm like, ooh, am I really, you know, following this passage? I mean, are my works dead? Because like, how can they not see that, you know? So
well, building on what you were talking about, where I kind of landed, that was a little bit later in the passage. He uses the illustration of Abraham and Rahab, but he says in verse 22, you see that faith was active along with his works, and faith was completed by his works. And at the end of the chapter, for as the body apart from the spirit is dead, so also faith apart from works is dead. And so, you know, I wrote down faith and works are hand in glove. Faith without works is useless and dead, leading me to understand that if it is not true faith, faith without works is useless and dead, leading me to understand that it isn't true faith at all. Faith is active with works and completed by works. So my faith must change me, my actions, and even my feelings. Rahab and Abraham took huge risks of faith. And so I just asked myself the question, what risks am I willing to take? And it feels like I've already taken several in the past 18 months. And so the application that was just kind of in my heart and mind was, you're on the path, keep going down that path and take risks, keep taking those risks, because without great risk, our church isn't going to go anywhere. And I'm not going to go anywhere. And so it's scary. That's like crazy scary. But then again, you know, my friends of the past 20 some odd years are 5.5 hours away. And, you know, I'm trying to figure out Tyler, Texas still. And so, you know, so that's real for me. And so, yeah. All right. I guess I've got to lean into risk and risk even more. And it's scary. But that's where I am.
I feel like so that risk is super scary. And you know, I've been coming to this church this year, I think 5 or 6 years. It's the only real church I've ever really called home. And at first, the first couple of years, I mean, I was crazy back in the day. I mean, Kaylin, I used her as an Uber service. She picked me up for bars all the time. You know, part of my prayer when I started this was all those people are still friends with me on Facebook, and they're going to see this podcast probably, and they'll be like, what's he doing? You know? And the hardest thing for me to get away from that and the risk was I'm going to lose my identity. I'm going to lose all my friends. And I'm going to lose that edge I had. I'm not going to be the fun, cool guy anymore. And I never really admitted it out loud, but it killed me inside. It truly killed me. I was scared to be alone and not have friends. Kind of like the position that you put yourself in, and I was scared. But God provided that for me whenever I just said, you know what, I'm done. And like people like Trevor and your husband, Bradley, he's been a great friend to me. I love that guy. and I just, it's funny because for a while I was on the island and I was like, man, I know this is right. I know this is what I was supposed to do. But it was really scary. I'm changing who I was. But really, I was changing on the mask that I had on, that people would accept me. And I got to take that off. And God's provided great people in my life that are true friends.
Yeah.
And that's what I've learned is true friends are different than just guys you see Saturday night.
Mm-hmm.
And me and Kellen laugh now, and it's our biggest joke is like Friday night we'll go to sleep at 9:00 and we're sitting here talking about what we're reading in the Bible. It's like, can you imagine? I said us a couple of years ago, even 3 years ago, could you imagine we would say we were doing this? There's no way.
Yeah.
There's no way. And the biggest joke we have is we would love to redo our wedding, because that was probably the top drunkest I've ever been in my life.
Wow.
And I would love to redo our wedding
Aww.
so I could remember it.
Yeah.
Wow.
And like, I don't remember it hardly at all. And I was like, man, I just wish that I can do it the way, be the husband and I was there. I mean, I was all right, but I wasn't there.
Yeah.
And that's one of my biggest regrets in life.
Yeah.
Is that I wasn't a present husband at my wedding because I let myself not be able to control myself. So
yeah,
it's taking that faith in knowing, all right, I'm about to put all this life that I know behind and start new. And I don't know if anybody's going to be with me.
Right.
And I resonate with what you're saying because I felt that.
Yeah.
But he provided for me.
Yeah. Well, the beauty of D groups is this, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Where you find people and the right people, and we figure out how to do life together and make each other better. And, and then it in turn makes our future much better. So Paul would say, forget what's behind you, press on toward the mark. Right. And yeah, I get it. You wish you could go back and change the past. It's not even real anymore. It doesn't exist.
Right.
You only have right now, this moment, much less today. Most of the day's already gone. You got right now. And so what are you going to do right now with this? I think that's an encouragement for everybody. This is why we do Bible reading every day, because all we have is right now, today. And so this has been good. Yeah.
No, I mean, I don't know. I could talk all day.
Come on.
So I'm just like, I love the risk thing. And I love that you brought that up, because that's been my hardest thing in the workplace is the risk, because I'm worried about, because of my faith or because of, being like maybe a Jesus freak or whatever, who am I going to push away, or inviting people to church, or who's going to be like, not be my friend anymore because of my faith and because of how I'm acting. And so the biggest risk for me is something that I feel like is so selfish. Like people are going to be, I don't know, be mad at me or whatever. Like just if I'm open about my faith and my convictions, especially in the workplace, that's a big deal lately. And I feel like sometimes that can repel people. Like I feel like I just, I don't know. And like, that's really hard. So I have to remember, okay, yeah, so maybe I'm persecuted a little bit for my faith and stuff. And then I think of, well, I just think of Jesus. I look at him the way I look at him, but then I have to remember, oh, he did repel people. Like he had a bunch of disciples and followers who turned away.
Oh, yeah.
And then he just had 12 left. And so like, I have to constantly remember, like, obviously the risks are worth taking. And sometimes maybe I do repel 20, but maybe it makes one turn around who never would have turned before, like, and just like comes to know Christ or sees the light of Christ because I'm not hiding it. I loved Colby's analogy this summer at Vacation Bible School camp, and they shined their light. But he said, if you take it and you cover that light and it goes out, he was like, and then all their lights go out. So I'm like, why am I trying to cover my light up? Because I'm scared of the risk. And then how's the light going to spread if I'm just constantly hiding the light that I have inside,
Yeah.
So it just made me think about that when you talked about risk, because I just think I have the fear of people not liking me,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
so I have to remember that people didn't like Jesus either,
right. Yeah.
So
at the same time, people are going to love you. That's the great reality of this. When you're a polarizing figure, just think about that. You're polarizing. Some will hate you, but some will love you. And in our culture, people are looking for somebody who will just actually be very different.
That's
Not just
true.
going with the herd. They're looking for somebody that
That's
is
true.
willing to truly show this totally different way to do life, because they're looking at the way life is going right now and it stinks. And so, yeah,
that's
dive
encouraging.
in.
Yeah.
My dad was a public school teacher.
Oh,
and one of my favorite memories of him was I came in after school one day and he was talking to one of his students that stayed afterwards. And he just basically shared the gospel with him and in his classroom. Now, that was a long time ago, but still, it wasn't that long ago.
Yeah.
And basically told this kid, this is how life works, and this is where you probably need to go. And see, I'm just crazy enough to tell people, make them fire you.
Yeah, right. I know.
Right?
I know. Yeah.
And that's how I pastor this church.
That's good.
I know that that's crazy to say, but I'm going to make them fire me.
No.
They're either going to fire me or we're going to go.
Right.
We're certainly not just going to sit in neutral. Ain't going to happen.
Yeah.
Something's going to happen.
Right. Exactly.
Right?
I love that though. Like people are just looking for somebody different and they want to go somewhere. And it might be that some people go the opposite, but I just love that.
Yeah. But Jesus was different.
Yes, he was.
He was polarized.
Yeah.
Totally polarizing.
I love that word. That's good.
So polarizing isn't a bad thing. You know, you're for me or you're against me, one or the other. And so you have greatness in you.
No.
And you have greatness in you.
Thank you, Dan.
And you know, it's just so good to be able to see what God can do in your life, my life, our lives, and through a goofy podcast like this. Yeah. Well, we probably have gone, let's see. Yeah, we've gone plenty long enough.
Oh yeah.
And so
Probably
good.
Over.
Hope it's encouraging to you guys. We had a great time. Listen next week. All right. Here we go.